Literally in the past 24 hours, we've seen the world's largest hedge fund manager come out and recommend that people get a 40% allocation to Bitcoin. And then just earlier today, Donald Trump, leader of the world's largest nation state, is talking about scrapping capital gains taxes on Bitcoin. And this could unlock literally trillions of dollars to flow into Bitcoin. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's actually go and watch the clip of Rick Edelman, again, the head of one of the world's largest hedge fund managers, make an absolute bombshell Bitcoin portfolio recommendation that we have to dive straight into it. Opti, let's play that clip.
Now I want to point out that your current viewpoint represents a dramatic shift from before when you used to tell investors and recommend that investors allocate low single digits to crypto in portfolios. So what has changed now? Why do you think specifically now you can allocate up to 40% in portfolios? I mean, that's a big jump.
It sure is. In my book, The Truth About Crypto, which was a #1 Amazon bestseller, that was in 2021, just 4 years ago, and I said 1%. Today, I'm saying 40%. That's astonishing, right?
Yeah.
Nobody ever anywhere has said such a thing as what I'm saying now. Why the shift? It's because of the massive change in the evolution of crypto that we've enjoyed in the past 4 years. 4 years ago, we didn't know if governments were going to ban Bitcoin. We didn't know if the technology would become obsolete. We didn't know if consumers might not want to adopt it. We didn't know if there would be any institutional engagement. Today, all those questions are resolved. In the Trump administration, in the new Congress, there is massive support for crypto. Every member of the president's cabinet personally owns Bitcoin. Every major economic appointee of the president, the secretaries of Treasury, Commerce, Department of Labor, the heads of the SEC, CFTC, OCC, FDIC, all of them huge supporters of crypto. There's no longer a question as to whether the government likes this or not and is going to support the development. We also now see institutional investors engaging in ways never seen before. Banks are now permitted for the very first time, along with brokerage firms, to trade and custody crypto, which they could never do before. Stable coins are now Goldman calls it the killer app of crypto. We now have a huge array going in, and in fact, the first legislation out of Congress is crypto legislation, the Genius Act. So it has radically changed. It is now a mainstream asset. And we look at the adoption rate, it's still incredibly low. It's only about 5% of the global population that own crypto at this stage. As more and more get involved, learn about it, discover it, and invest in it, we're going to see massive asset inflows. And because, and certainly in the case of Bitcoin, it's a fixed supply asset, the more...
Pretty bullish, don't you think, Opti? I mean, the kid's gone from recommending a 1% Bitcoin allocation to 40. And what I think is interesting is that this is not just, your one or your two, hedge fund managers at the extremes. We've now got BlackRock going from calling Bitcoin, not an ESG asset in 2021. They were saying Bitcoin is bad for the environment. In 2017, Larry Fink said that Bitcoin is just used for money laundering and scams. But now all of a sudden, he's gone from that to, okay, Bitcoin is an investable asset. It is a legitimate asset. And we recommend everybody put 1 to 2% of Bitcoin in their portfolio. So I think this pivot that we're starting to see, it's really interesting. And it's across the board. It is 55% of global hedge funds right now have a Bitcoin allocation. And if they're listening and watching what Rick Edelman is saying, again, the man at the head of a firm worth $300 billion, and they're watching him go from a 1% Bitcoin recommendation in 2021 to today a 40% Bitcoin recommendation, what do you guys think is going to happen to the other 55% of the global hedge funds that own Bitcoin? Again, these guys, they own about $5 trillion of wealth, and there's about 15,000 hedge funds. And right now, I think they're going to be absolutely scrambling to put more Bitcoin on their balance sheet and increase their exposure to Bitcoin. I don't know about you, Opti, but I'm feeling pretty
Yeah,
bullish.
well, it's absolutely incredible. Look, we've been talking about this on the show for a long time, kind of the strategy, or rather the psychology around Bitcoin. You first get in, you're kind of like, yeah, let me just dabble in this, get like 1 to 2%. I think all of last year, everyone's like, look, you're not going to blow up your portfolio if you just put 3% of your total portfolio into Bitcoin. Now we got this guy, Rick Edelman, who, for you guys that don't know, he's literally been voted the #1 financial advisor for multiple years. He's, I forget what it was called, but it's like the Investor Hall of Fame or something like that. He's written books about financial, security, what to do with your finances. And as that clip said, and people in the chat were wondering if that was a real clip, it wasn't AI, guys. It was just somewhat like it got out of sync. I don't know what happened there. But now he's gone from 1% to 40%. And honestly, he's sounding a lot like us here at Simply Bitcoin. We basically tell you, like, put half of what you can into Bitcoin. Not financial advice, of course, but this is what we did. We basically, pay your bills, pay your rent, pay your groceries. Everything else should go into Bitcoin. As all Bitcoiners say, sell your chairs, live in your parents' basement, sell your cars, go all in on Bitcoin. Well, now we have literally the #1 financial advisor who also is a hedge fund manager, essentially saying what we've been saying on this show for a very long time. And to, kind of backtrack or bring his receipts up, he's basically mentioning all of the regulatory clarity. All the institutions have 180% flipped on Bitcoin ever since the Trump administration has come in here. So it is very interesting. As much as you may not love Orange Man, you probably don't like him. Maybe you do like him. You can at least acknowledge the fundamental shift that we've seen since the United States has come out for Bitcoin. And we're seeing this not only happen in the US by financial advisors, institutions like Larry Fink and BlackRock, etc., but we've seen this around the world. Every country now and probably every financial advisor has to seriously look at Bitcoin. We're seeing new nation states come out every other day or week, basically say like, oh, we're going to study strategic Bitcoin reserve now. Like, the game is fundamentally changing. The game theory is kicking into overdrive. And I think now that we have essentially Main Street being walked into, or rather, handheld into saving into Bitcoin, we're going to see a crazy amount of people finally dip their toes into Bitcoin. I literally, this is more of a heuristic, a personal one, but I had one of my friends call me this weekend, and we haven't talked to him in a while. And he knows I've been in Bitcoin forever. I've been literally shilling Bitcoin to him for years at this point. And he finally is coming to the same realization I think all these institutional managers are coming to, which is essentially, look, life's getting harder. I'm seeing businesses come down. Inflation's going up. The cost of living is getting crazy. And he's kind of looking over at me like, but how are you doing so well? And it's like, bro, it's Bitcoin. All you have to do is just start saving in Bitcoin. It's really not that difficult. So, of course, that's a personal anecdote here, but I think what we're seeing is the tide shift around Bitcoin. We're seeing that people are, for lack of better terms, becoming more accepting of this Bitcoin thing. People are realizing, hey, this is probably a good thing to store my value in. And I think now that we have literally the best marketing team out there, the guys in the suits, whether you love them or hate them, and they're out there on television talking about Bitcoin, talking about, hey, you might want to get some just in case it catches on. I think we are fundamentally in a new paradigm shift. Like, 1% to 40% is a huge jump. Like, he's starting to sound like a full-on Bitcoiner. And all he basically said is like, look, every institution is becoming pro-Bitcoin at this point. Like, you probably should get some. And I think we're seeing that happen very fast. And obviously for you guys out there, the only thing you care about is like, okay, that's cool, Opti, but like, when does number go up? That's the only thing that matters here for most people. It's like, yeah, that's fine. I get to acquire more sats, but we've been stuck at 100K for 40 days, bro. When is this going to rip? I think soon. I think very, very soon. At least that's my vibe. That's my feeling. I think we're in kind of the historical quiet of the summer. Usually it's kind of, sell in May, go away, and then it'll start pumping at the end. And that's really for most assets in general. But I don't know. Luke, it's starting to feel like the tsunami's coming. Like, what is I know you've been on that beat for a minute. You've been talking about the mother of all supply shocks. The exchanges are drying up. The institutional capital is coming in. The Bitcoin treasury companies are buying all the Bitcoin. When is this breaking, Luke? When is this breaking to the upside?
Yeah, so I've put my metaphorical, let's say, reputation on the line here for a little while, because again, I think if we get to 2030 and Bitcoin's not $1 million, again, you guys can all call me the biggest loser and the biggest fool in the game, because I've been screaming for a little while here. I do think that these ideas of cycles and diminishing returns, they're all going to get broken to the upside. It's going to be really mind-blowing. I think the way that Bitcoin evolves over these next 5 years, and it's purely because Bitcoin's a different asset now. We bring you guys the news literally every day here at Simply Bitcoin. We should nearly rebrand the live show to a double daily dose of live show bullishness, because that is how many bullish headlines are just starting to come out here. And when the bull run really kicks up, I don't think we'll even be able to stay on top of it with our daily live shows from Monday to Friday, and Dante, Rustin, and Oceans posting videos like psychopaths all week as well. I don't think we're going to be able to keep up with the bullish news when this bull run really starts kicking into high gear, because like you said, Opti, right now, I don't think we've even seen the beginning stages of this bull run. I think, again, like you say, it's really interesting. Traditionally, the way that the markets evolve seasonally is you sell in May and you go away, and typically all the broader markets are pretty quiet during these time frames. And we did see something similar like this last year in Bitcoin. Bitcoin kind of hit that all-time high at about when was it, like 65, 69, $70,000 a coin in Q1 2024. And then when we got into the summer doldrums, so to say, Bitcoin was just chopping sideways at like between $70,000 and $55,000 a coin for 7 or 8 months. And at the time, so many people said, it's the top. The whales are distributing their Bitcoin. BlackRock's launched this Bitcoin ETF to make you the exit liquidity. Big money's dumping Bitcoin. It's all over. Pack it up. But of course, that didn't happen. Today, we're back at $110,000. And again, I would just caution people, look, if we do have a quiet couple of months here, just be prepared for some explosive volatility, because I think at the end of the day, supply and demand is the first principles of economics. And right now we're seeing a supply shock at the same time that we're seeing a massive wave of demand come into the space. So I'm pretally bullish over the next 6 months. And I'm pretty excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm super bullish, and we have some good comments in the chat. But I actually, Luke, I want to kind of, before we move on, I kind of want to recap, and maybe you have a better memory than I do, but what has been the advocated portfolio size? I remember it was like 1%. I think it got up to like 3%. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen it kind of move up towards the 5-10%. And now we got a new one coming out from someone. Again, the #1 financial advisor, like voted 3 years in a row, or for at least 3 years. He's in the Investor Financial Advice Hall of Fame, and he's gone to 40% now. It's kind of a big jump going from 10% to 40%. Do you remember what the other portfolio investment advices were? I think it was 1 to 3. And then we got to like 3 for 5. And I think we covered that last week. And then it's kind of like 5 to 10%. And now this guy's 40%. Obviously, I think in the long run, in hindsight, we will know that he is closer to the truth here. Obviously, we would say maybe go 100%. But then you also have to live. There's bills, there's groceries, etc., your rent, all that stuff. But 40% sounds a lot closer to what us Bitcoiners have been saying forever. Rather, maybe what we did ourselves. I'm sure you and I have both done 50% as much as possible. Literally living in your parents' basement and just stacking everything you can in Bitcoin. So do you remember what the numbers were? I think it was 1 to 3, and then we saw a jump from like 3 to 5. And then in the last couple of weeks, it went 5 to 10. And now we got this new one, 40%. Like, when are they saying 100? When are they going full sailor and saying 100?
It's coming. That day's coming, that's for sure. But what I will say is, like 4 years ago, everybody said it was 0. They said Bitcoin's a scam, Bitcoin's worthless, Bitcoin's tulip bubbles, Bitcoin's not an investable asset, it's a retail speculation, it's this high volatility, risky tech stock. It's just like the NASDAQ. That's what all these clowns were saying just 4 years ago. And to your point, Opti, how quickly has that Overton window changed year after year after year. BlackRock's now at 1 to 2% Bitcoin allocations. Charles Schwab just recently in late 2024. It's not so recently anymore. Time flies when you're in Bitcoin. It's already June 2025. But Charles Schwab came out, again, they're a multi-trillion-dollar firm. They said 10% Bitcoin. If you're not 10% in Bitcoin, you're getting left behind. That's their exact words. It's huge. And now we've got all of these other multi-trillion-dollar firms right now just kind of saying the quiet parts out loud, okay? Now we're up to a 40% Bitcoin allocation. Let's not forget Ricardo Salinas. A couple of years ago, he got a lot of notoriety. He was Mexico's third richest man. He came out and he said, yeah, I've got like 10% of my net worth in Bitcoin. And all of a sudden, this has just changed month after month, year after year. Ricardo Salinas upped his portfolio from 10% Bitcoin, 25% Bitcoin, 50% Bitcoin. Most recent video, 80% Bitcoin. That's what I saw about a month ago. And that is just the general trend of things that we're seeing amongst these very large, very wealthy individuals. They're accumulating as much Bitcoin as possible. And as we continue to show you guys and break it down for you guys on the weekly, the maths is just not mathing right now. Okay, we've got 2.1-ish million Bitcoin on exchanges. The Giga Chad, Michael Saylor, MicroStrategy holds nearly 600,000 coins. They might have just got over that landmark today, actually, the big old 600. And how many other companies can do that? Well, about 3.5 based upon how much Bitcoin is on the exchanges. So the fact that we're seeing this pivoting and this ever increasing percentage of a Bitcoin recommendation in one's portfolio, it is inevitably going to lead to what we always talk about, Opti, and that is the supply crunch and the supply shock. And I just think, again, it's going to happen sooner than most people think. A lot of people are like, oh, yeah, you know, maybe $10 million Bitcoin in 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. I think we're going to see it much quicker than most people think. But what are your feelings? What's your little crystal ball telling you about this bull run, Opti?
Well,
How do you
I've
feel
been
right
saying
now?
it for a while, and it's not my crystal ball; it's my oracles, which are my crystal balls. I've been saying this for over a year, and I even was having a conversation with ChatGPT this morning about the Dixie strength and different currency strength and stuff, and the Trump kind of administration, their view on stuff, and what's going on with Jay Powell. And a conservative bet was around 150 to 180, $100,000. And then a more bullish scenario, if all the things kind of go in our direction, which is rate cuts, dollar index strength going down, of course, more corporate treasury buys, more institutional FOMO, and then the fabled retail FOMO that we might not ever see again because no one wants to buy Bitcoin right now, which is absolutely insane. I saw a metric this morning that's saying retail interest right now in Bitcoin is at a 6-month low. So it's almost as low as, the lowest parts of the bear market right now, and we're holding up above 100K. I've been saying for a minute, and again, if all those things play out, I've been saying that it's probably in the $200,000 to $300,000 range for me. And I actually have a clip of Mark Moss kind of explaining how this works coming up right now in the culture. That's kind of been my baseline. Again, I was wrong at 100K in 2021 as well. So what do I really know? But it does seem like the paradigm is shifting around Bitcoin. The sentiment is shifting around Bitcoin. And this time is like it. Again, I hate to be the cliche. Like this time is totally different. We have a whole different breed of interest coming into Bitcoin. And I think it's never been more important to hold Bitcoin than it is today. But for the chat, I do want to bring up the headline here so you guys don't think that this was just AI. So this is from CNBC, of course. Maybe you don't trust the legacy financial news, but they don't lie that much. They got to use some sources here. And the headline is bigger Bitcoin hodl, time for 10 to 40% of portfolio in crypto. And if you kind of, go into this, he basically said, like, if you are, what's it say? If you are really a believer in Bitcoin, then obviously you should be up on the 40%, but mandatory for everyone should be at least 10%. So even if you don't believe in Bitcoin like we do, that's still a 10% minimum allocation to Bitcoin, which I think is huge. I remember we had the clip the other day of James Lavish on the show, and he was basically running through the numbers that if you just put 3% of your portfolio in Bitcoin, it's your portfolio with a 3% Bitcoin allocation would outperform anything else in the market. And now we're saying, hey, minimum 10%. I think this is going to get crazy. Like, we're starting to see the watershed moment come down. Like, we're starting to see the levee break, where now everyone is kind of incentivized to start talking about Bitcoin, having a small percentage of Bitcoin. Are we at the point where the shoeshine boy is telling you to invest in Bitcoin? No, not yet. But I think we will get there, maybe by the end of the year. But we are getting to literally the best financial advisors out there, by their peers, the best voted by their peers advisors out there, essentially saying, or rather putting their career on the risk at this point, being like, look, 40%, if you believe in this asset or this new currency, this new money, 40% minimum, or rather, I guess it's maximum. We would say, 40% minimum. That's probably the starting point for us Bitcoiners. But at the very least, 10%. Just dip your toes in it. Like a 10% allocation, maybe it sounds like a lot, but that's still probably negligible in your portfolio standing right now. So I think it's going to get crazy, Luke. It's starting to feel like it is going to get absolutely crazy. Cheer up, Opti. I am cheered, bro. I'm cheered. I'm good. Maybe I ran out of coffee this morning. Maybe I'm one coffee short, but I'm good, man. Life's great. Everything's good. But yeah, the best. Okay. All right. Chill out. The best financial advisors are Luke and Opti. Hey, this is not financial advice. We are just guys on the internet talking about Bitcoin and telling you what we see happening right now. So it's all leading towards Bitcoin. It's all going towards Bitcoin as far as I'm concerned. But I don't know, Luke, should we put a pin on this one? Because we do have a bullish show. We got a lot of good stuff for you guys today.
What I will say before we move on to the juicy stuff that we've got prepped for you guys is, again, I think it's very obvious that, again, I've been around a couple cycles now, so have you, Opti. You can feel it when the shoe shine boys are starting to shill Bitcoin, or your Uber drivers all of a sudden a crypto trader on the side. You can really feel and see when Bitcoin is close to a top. You don't even have to be using all of the mainstream, platforms like Facebook and get your normie pulse check, so to say. It's very obvious when it is very euphoric, and you kind of feel it every cycle. Last cycle in 2021, you had the NFT rise. You had everybody becoming an artist. Everybody was all of a sudden an artist. Oh, I'm here for the culture, bro. Let me mint 1 million JPEGs and dump them on retail's head. It's very obvious when we are kind of close to a top or a really euphoric blow off top. 2017, it was the same thing with the altcoin mania. Everybody was buying these, these more useful blockchains like Ethereum and all of these other trashes, like IOTA and Cardano and Ripple and all of this other crap. But again, I don't think we're anywhere near that right now, to your point, Opti. I don't think the shoeshine boys out there giving hot Bitcoin treasury tips yet. He's saying, oh, this company's put Bitcoin on the treasury. I'm going to go buy that one and go 100x long. I don't think we're there yet. I do think that's maybe why or how this cycle could look a little bit different. Again, I think an interesting narrative and thesis being put out there right now is that the Bitcoin treasury companies, this is going to be like the new meta this cycle. Again, most people are kind of used to altcoins being the meta or the thing that outperforms Bitcoin in these speculative manias. I'm not so sure. Again, we always talk about why Bitcoin's different, and we always show you the reason why it's different this time is because we have large multi-trillion, multi-hundred billion dollar firms and sovereign wealth funds and pension funds and billionaires buying Bitcoin. And I don't think the billionaires are going to log into MetaMask and start using an insecure Ethereum, mobile wallet to start, trading crap coins on something called Sushi Swap or Pancake Swap. I just don't think we're going to see that. I think the big boys who want to get a little bit of extra juice on their Bitcoin returns, I think they're probably going to buy the stocks of these publicly traded companies. That's just my thoughts. So again, even if you're looking at the Bitcoin treasury mania that we are seeing, I kind of get a feeling that this is just the beginning of companies putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So there's just a couple of interesting catalysts that, I'm keeping a little bit of a pulse check on and having a look at, where we are in this bull market. It still feels very early.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. I think, as much as you may not believe in the Bitcoin treasury play, we're seeing it does deliver a product to the market. A lot of these people that are, maybe not able to get Bitcoin into just spot Bitcoin or, real Bitcoin, hold it directly. It's unlocking a lot of capital coming into the Bitcoin market, obviously via exposure to a Bitcoin product. But I think we haven't drained that orange yet. That's still going to, I think, unlock a lot of capital coming into the market. I think this is maybe, like you were saying, Luke said Meta, which for you guys, he's not talking about the Meta stock, Facebook. He's basically talking like maybe this is the new hype cycle. Maybe this is the new arbitrage play here, is people investing in these companies that are buying Bitcoin because basically they can't get their capital into Bitcoin directly, or, maybe they want a little more risk. Maybe their appetite is for a little more risk, a little more returns. And so I don't think we've gotten to the point yet where we should fully be concerned about it. Obviously, as Bitcoiners, we're always concerned and we're vocal about that because we want people to hold Bitcoin directly. Again, not your keys, not your Bitcoin. The same memes play out through time, but we are seeing that is the new rage. And I think a lot of capital is going to find its way into these Bitcoin treasury companies. And is that going to take away from spot Bitcoin price? I don't think we really know yet. We're still kind of learning throughout this process. So I hate to say it, Luke, but this time does feel different. I know I'm a broken record at this point, but this time feels way different.
Absolutely. This cycle is going to be a completely different cycle. I think in 2017, people were buying Bitcoin, selling Bitcoin for a Lambo. I think there's an interesting comment here. Max Trotter says, sack your financial advisor and learn Bitcoin. I think that's going to be the quote unquote narrative for this cycle. Everybody's going to come to the realization that they need to understand Bitcoin. And I think as we're going to show you guys in the latter part of today's show, literally people at the highest powers, the people highest up in government, leaders of governments right now are coming to the realization that they also need to not only learn Bitcoin, but create favorable Bitcoin environments with the rules and the regulations they push down. I don't want to open that rabbit hole yet, but we got some
man. I think some huge news might be upon us anyways, guys. Of course, I want to remind you guys to smash the like button, comment on this show if we're just too bull-tarded or not, and of course hit the subscribe button because we're dropping a bunch of content for you guys on YouTube. Of course, the live show goes on Monday through Friday, and then we got Rustin, Dante, Oceans, all kinds of content for you guys. And before I move on, I do want to give a huge shout out to our partners over at the Bitcoin Well. Go to bitcoinwell.com/simplybtc and sign up to Bitcoin Well. Make sure you use products that are designed to ensure that you get the Bitcoin. They are self-custody by default, which means you need to have a Bitcoin wallet to get Bitcoin. There is no chance, no possibility of them ever rug pulling you. They have delivered every sat that has been bought on Bitcoin Well. This is the best way to ensure that you don't lose your Bitcoin. Again, self-custody is the revolution. Scan the QR code here and you have 3 chances to win 1 million sats if you go into the wishing well. Toss a coin and you have a chance to win 1 million sats. On that note, guys, let's get into the show because we got some stuff here. Mark Moss is going to explain how we get to 200K. We have some interesting news coming out of Washington, D.C. And then, of course, in the culture, I have Luke here. And I might have an interesting chart explaining why the Bitcoin price isn't going up as much as we want. Of course, Luke's going to probably counter this a little bit, but we'll have a good debate here today. All right, guys, let's get into the numbers.
I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat, produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on StampSeed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today.
Alrighty then, guys. We're over here on Clark Moody's dashboard. Of course, looking at the Bitcoin numbers. The current Bitcoin price is $107,660 per Bitcoin. Holding pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. Sats per dollar, aka how much Bitcoin you can buy for a single dollar, aka how much the dollar is worth in Bitcoin, is currently at 929 sats per dollar. The block height is 903,419. The market cap in fiat terms is 2.14 trillion. And look, we are inching towards 10% of the gold market cap, currently at 9.26. And, you know, realized monetary inflation, taking fiat currencies to school, is at 0.84%. And we're just minus 3.9% from all-time high. And yet people are extremely bearish out there. You know, Bitcoiners are hilarious, just how bearish we get. It's like, you know, 100K was cool for like a day, and now I'm just like, do something. Can you pump? Anyways, on that note, we have this clip from Mark Moss. He was on Kitco News, and he is explaining probably what everyone is wondering. How does Bitcoin get to 200K? What are the factors? When is this happening again? Everyone wants to know what the price is doing this year, not in 10, 20 years from now. We all know what it's doing in 20 years. You know, it's going up forever. But what are the possibilities of Bitcoin hitting, you know, a 2, 3x from here? Well, Mark Moss explains this, and we'll chat about it.
And so we've seen the rise of the price going along with this pump, if you will. I think the question that maybe you're asking is like, how much further can it go? What are we expecting from this cycle? And what we can see is that a lot of people think that we haven't gotten the price appreciation, even though, to the point that you're making, the ETFs are having these big flows and the corporations are buying massive amounts of Bitcoin, although it did go from 40 to 110. But what we're seeing, Bitcoin is very unique compared to other financial assets. One thing that's very unique about Bitcoin is we can see on-chain data, all right? So it makes it very transparent. And so what we can see is that we can see all the wallets that are holding Bitcoins that haven't moved in a certain time frame. So we look at all the Bitcoin that have not moved in the last 1 to 5 years. We call these HODL waves, people that are holding Bitcoin for long periods of time. And people that have been holding it between 1 and 5 years are now starting to take long-term profit. So over the last 3 months, we've seen about 240,000 Bitcoin be moved from long-term wallets into the market. 240. So it's been matching, the amount of selling has been matching the inflows from the ETFs and the treasury companies. So that's sort of what's been keeping the price right here. But here's what sort of history tells us, that there's potentially a supply squeeze coming. Because what we can see, again, looking at on-chain data, is we can see the amount of selling coming from these wallets is diminishing pretty quickly right now. Based off of past instances, when we've looked through several cycles, looking at the amount of coins that have moved and the selling slowing down, we have seen Bitcoin double within months in a similar setup to this. So as long as we can see the ETF flows continuing and the treasury companies continue to acquire at about the same rate they have been, and we can see the supply is dwindling pretty quickly, I think we could see Bitcoin double from here in a few months.
Okay, Luke, I think this is right up your alley. And I just brought up the HODL waves chart so you guys can visualize this for yourself. You know, this is on Bitcoin Magazine Pro. It's a free chart. You can see the HODL waves. And of course, you guys know I'm colorblind, so I'm not going to try to explain these colors to you here. But Luke, he did mention one of your favorite things here. You know, the mother of all supply shocks. He was mentioning the Bitcoin on exchanges. He was mentioning the sellers kind of matching what the corporate treasury is buying. And at a certain point, this has to rip. So what's your thoughts on here, Mark Moss? And, you know, what's the viability of his correction being correct? Is it a non-zero chance?
Yeah, I mean, Mark's the man. So firstly, I had the pleasure of catching up with him again last week and interviewing him again. But yeah, I think he makes a good point. Like when you see what we're seeing when it comes to the HODL waves and the whales, Bitcoin typically pumps aggressively. You can see this in the accumulation and the number of Bitcoin bought by whales leading into each bull run. Typically, again, I know there's many respected on-chain analysts who I call friends who disagree with me. They think, oh, don't whale watch. Whale watching is a bad idea. I disagree. I think if you look at every halving year, whether it's 2016, 2020, the big boys are always accumulating before the bull run takes off. And we're seeing that again today. We're seeing the whales and the big boys accumulating Bitcoin before it takes off. I think that's what Mark was referring to in that clip when talking about the hodl waves. To the other part of the equation, I personally haven't found any correlation between short-term supply shocks and short-term price action and price pumps. This is something that I always agree with my good friend Giovanni about. Giovanni, I don't know how, but he assumes that when I'm talking about the supply shock, I'm saying that is what's going to break the power law model. And it is, but just not in the short term. So when I talk about the mother of all supply shocks, I'm stepping out big picture and I'm saying when that trend of Bitcoin leaving the exchanges exhausts and we finally see zero Bitcoin on the exchanges, that is when you're going to see the mother of all supply shocks. And that is the moment that I think it's most likely that we break all of these ridiculous models that claim to predict the price of Bitcoin using faulty data in the past. So again, that's kind of like in the short term, I haven't actually seen any, good correlation showing coins leaving the exchanges has a big impact on price. I think coins leaving the exchanges, it doesn't actually aggressively push the price up, because the reason why coins are leaving the exchanges is because we have sophisticated actors in the market. They are DCAing. They are not buying $1 billion of Bitcoin in one hit, smashing the big green buy button. They're methodically deploying Bitcoin into the market, and they're methodically ripping Bitcoin off the exchanges using like these little AI algorithms that is making thousands of transactions, thousands of little tiny $1,000 and $10,000 buys every single day, trying not to create slippage to move the market. This is why we're seeing coins consistently leave the exchanges for the past 5 years. And this is why we haven't seen this big godly God candle yet, because the actors in the market, they're being very methodical with how they strip the Bitcoin out of the market. So again, there's a lot there to unpack, Opti, but what are your thoughts on, supply shocks, hodl waves? I do think we could see, $200,000 Bitcoin in the next 3 to 6 months. I don't ever make short-term price predictions, but I think that's, I'm pretty standard play. We're going to see those price levels, but I don't think that is because of a supply shock. I just think this is just what's going to happen.
mean, I do like the meme of mother of all supply shocks. I think it will happen eventually. I've been kind of going back and forth with the idea of exchanges running out of Bitcoin. I'm kind of taking the opposite view. Like, I think, simply put, there will always be Bitcoin to be sold at any price. That's just like the basic heuristic. But once you kind of explain, yeah, that's probably the case. But also, fewer Bitcoin on an exchange probably means that the value of those Bitcoins are at an incredible, price range right now. And so when we talk about it in that sense, then I do think that there may be something there. Obviously, I'm a simple, Austrian economist type person. I just keep it simple. It's demand and supply economics playing out pure and simple. If the price is going down, then there's more sellers than buyers. If the price is going up, there's more buyers than sellers. Again, there's only 21 million in Bitcoin. There's probably, a lot less being traded. We know it's around 2 million. Who knows how much of that Bitcoin is going to be unlocked at certain prices. But I think it's just simply demand and supply. And right now, as much as we are all getting caught up in the different news stories and the new hype trends, I think it's just very simple. There's just not that many people wanting to buy Bitcoin right now. And I always joke about it on the show, in person. It's like, if Bitcoiners were better at orange pilling, this price would already be at $1 million per coin minimum. But, everyone is not that good at orange pilling. That's just the basics of this, because we get into all of the different monetary theory, all the nuance here, versus trying to find ways to explain this to people that solve problems. Like, keep it simple. People want to avoid being poor. The best way to avoid being poor is saving in Bitcoin. It's a very simple proposition. You don't have to get into monetary theory or, you know, central banks or Bretton Woods or the creation of the Federal Reserve. It's just like, hey, man, is life getting hard? Is it harder for you to pay your bills? Are you working more and still treading water? I have this Bitcoin thing for you. It's pretty simple sell. But Luke, you did bring up power law, and I was kind of debating whether we should pull this on the show, but we are kind of talking about the, you know, the price speculations for this year, where we are in the cycle. And I did see this chart here, and, you know, let's just add a little more hopium in here today before we really start talking about some news. What's your thoughts on this chart right here? And it's quoted as saying, you waited 4 years for these next 4 months, and the therapist goes, euphoria is coming. So for the audio listeners, this is a Bitcoin power curve cycle cloud. And it's got the Bitcoin price, the power curve support, the 5 years ahead. You know, it's got some speculations. And we have a 4-year cloud of minimum and max. And then the 4-year cycles means of what it did in the past. And you can see here, or rather, for you guys on audio that can't see here, it's, you know, it's looking like, what, mid 200 to potentially right under 300K here. So, Luke, I know you like some charts that confirm your bias here, and I know you're not the biggest power law guy, but what do we know about the power curve?
Jeez, what do I say about this? The power curve. This is getting more ridiculous by the day. We're going from power law to power opinions to quantile models to now we've got power curve cloud cycles. This is insane. I think it's, again, I think I love the fact that us as Bitcoiners are trying to educate new people. Again, let's that's my base assumption. I love anybody who's trying to increase adoption of Bitcoin. Love it. The thing I don't love is people saying, hey, buy into my Patreon group where I'm going to teach you how to trade these power law models, because not only is this just a hypothesis of what I think might happen with Bitcoin this cycle, but this model that I've created, it's blessed. It is math and science. I'm a PhD physicist, so it cannot be wrong and it can never be challenged. And anybody who challenges it has to have a PhD in XYZ to be able to challenge it. That's what I'm not a fan of. I don't like the fact that people are holding these models up as gospel and saying they are 100% correct because they've been correct until today. That's the dangerous thing. That's the dangerous part that I like to try to rip down, so to say, and shed some light on, because it's not a popular opinion to say that a model predicting $300,000 Bitcoin in 4 months is wrong. It's not popular. Again, we've seen how people have just blown up their Twitter accounts and their following by just saying, I love a power law. I love a power law. It gets clicks, it gets views. But again, I don't care about those things. I care about actually educating people and making sure that people don't get wrecked by these models. A lot of people got wrecked by stock to flow in 2021. 288K in 2021. It's math. This wasn't math and science, but a lot of people were saying, look, it's going to happen. And again, I was bullish. I did think Bitcoin would have done a lot more in that 2021 cycle than it did. Don't get me wrong. But I certainly wasn't trying to scam people into buying my private products and my trading genius to profiteer off of these models. And that's what I think is dangerous. So again, I do think Bitcoin is going to go into the hundreds of thousands of dollars in the next 6 to 12 months. But it's not because of some model, okay? What's the more important thing about these models is group psychology. So if everybody is thinking in their mind, okay, Bitcoin is worth $300,000 next year, I'm not selling until we get there. Like, again, there's a little bit of, this is just typically how markets work. A lot of people in Bitcoin are not selling their coins for 200, 300, or 400, or 500,000 cut bucks. It's as simple as that. And I think a lot of people are aware of how Bitcoin works in these cycles. So again, I do think it's a good probability that Bitcoin runs up pretty aggressively to something like $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 next cycle. And we do have a little bit of a cool off period. Again, I'm not sure it's going to look the same as previous cycles. I'm less certain of that by the day. But I do think we're in for a pretty good run over the next 6 to 12 months. And that's purely because supply and demand economics continue doing what they're doing. The fundamentals of Bitcoin get stronger by the day. And the more that we do see this supply shock exacerbate itself into and throughout the Bitcoin market, the higher probabilities that I put on Bitcoin actually breaking these cycles of your power curve, cycle clouds, and the power law opinion, and all of these other things. Again, I think we're about 50, 60, 65% chance that we break these models to the upside this bull run. Again, could be wrong. 50 to 60% chance. That's just how I feel. That's just how I think the odds are if I were to lick the old finger and stick it in the air. That's how I think the winds are feeling, so to say, right now. But again, my probabilities or thoughts on what's going to happen, it's always changing, it's always evolving. And again, like I always say, whenever we're talking about price update, nobody knows where the price of Bitcoin is going in the short or the medium term, especially me, this crazy kid with the wild haircut. I have no idea. So don't listen to me. All I'm going to say is don't listen to anyone. Anybody who tells you they know exactly where the price is going, they're a liar. They're a fraud. They're trying to take your Bitcoin.
Yeah, 100%. All we do know is don't trade, just stack sats, take it into cold storage. You're going to be good. I do have a super chat in here. Shout out to Mexicajado. I can't actually read this, but Bitcoin and tacos equal happiness. Thank you for the $10, bro. All righty then. On that note, let's get to the news coming out of Washington. If this takes place, this would be a huge win for the Bitcoin space. I'm really pushing for what's about to happen. So we'll go through the saga. Let's get into that.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Cold Card. If you're serious about self-custody, Cold Card is the best Bitcoin hardware wallet. There is no second best. The Cold Card Q is the ultimate air-gapped Bitcoin signing device, complete with a full keyboard, large screen, camera, NFC support, and much more. Do you prefer something sleeker? The MK4 is trusted by hardcore Bitcoiners around the world. Both are built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners, secure and open source. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 5% off with promo code SIMPLY. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin today with Cold Card.
Alrighty then, guys. Again, like I said, we are starting to see, I think, some bullish stuff coming out of the Washington administration, the Trump administration. Some things coming out of Washington, D.C. Obviously, we all know Trump got elected, and we could probably say it because of the Bitcoiners, or rather the crypto people, and his push for the adoption of Bitcoin. He's been saying, we're going to make this America the Bitcoin superpower of the world. And of course, he's done the strategic Bitcoin reserve. We got a new SEC head that is more pro Bitcoin. We've seen all of the institutions kind of start to pivot around Bitcoin. There's a lot of things. The regulations seem to be easing up, where there's, stablecoin legislation going through. The stablecoin bill is supposedly going to be done by July. At least that's what Scott Bessent said this morning. there's a lot of things that are building around Bitcoin right now in America that I think are extremely bullish. But if this happens, I think this might be the most bullish thing that we've seen come out of the Trump administration around Bitcoin. And I've said this before, if this does take place, then let's put him on the Mount Rushmore at this point. But what am I talking about? Here I have a tweet. This was the 27th. So what is that? Is that Friday? I think this was Friday. David Bailey tweets and goes, "We're at the finish line of getting de minimis Bitcoin transactions under $600 cap gains free and ending double taxation on mining and staking in the big, beautiful bill. This might be our only shot at this for a while. Today and tomorrow, call or email your senator and make sure they know how much you support this. If you are a major donor, reach out to your point of contact and let them know. It's so close, just needs one extra push." And then he says, when I say we, I mean the tireless Bitcoiners on the Hill actively making this happen, and he's just a megaphone for this. So he does do another update. And it goes, update, looking like this will be added to the big, beautiful bill via an amendment now. And this was the following day. Earliest vote would be tomorrow night. So that would have been yesterday. And we only need 51 votes. Republicans hold 53 seats. Call your senator. Tell them it's life or death for you, metaphorically. And tag them in a tweet. Hit their inbox. Win, win, win. And then, of course, some Bitcoiners kind of responding. We have Adam Bagg. He says, like and reposted. Because we all want to see capital gains eliminated on Bitcoin. It is money. You don't pay capital gains if you're, trading from one currency to the other currency, from a weak currency to a strong currency. And Adam Back goes further and he goes, this is the way. Just no cap gains on Bitcoin at all. Not this weak sauce, exempt on small limit lately news. And then doubling down this morning, we got Ellen O'Tarrett, who is a journalist and host. She was working at Fox. She's actually been doing a lot of really good work lately. I highly suggest that you follow her on Twitter. She does have some really good breaking news. And she goes, scoop, amendments to the OBBB, the big beautiful bill regarding crypto taxes, are still on the table today as of Monday, despite some last minute disagreements on Sunday. I'm hearing the White House has gotten wind of this and is pushing for inclusion of Senator Lummis's language in the final bill. And then, of course, Dennis Porter's going out saying massive. We could see cap gains exemption and the end of double taxation on mining rewards. It's working. Again, continuing the push to talk to your senators. And then we got this morning, right before the show, we had Senator Lummis say, America leads in financial innovation. And thanks to President Trump, we are keeping it that way. I'm working on the big, beautiful bill amendment to ensure Americans can use digital assets without fear of tax violations. More to come soon. And then here, actually, there was a good thread here. I'm not going to read it here, but I'll drop it in the chat for you guys if you want to kind of, game shop what's going on with capital gains and around Bitcoin. Now, as a Bitcoiner, I've obviously said for a while, if capital gains got eliminated around Bitcoin, that would be huge for the Bitcoin industry. That might be the biggest thing that could possibly happen for not just the industry, but rather for more as us as individuals so that we can use Bitcoin and Bitcoin will start circulating. The fabled circular economy will finally start to take place. We won't be treated as criminals because we want to use a better money. Now, obviously, this is still getting pushed through. This is still kind of on. It still needs to get passed through the finish line here. But you know me, I'm not the biggest political guy. As far as the big, beautiful bill, I know Nico would be here and be like, it needs to get pushed through. From my perspective, from my vantage point, it just sounds like a lot of spending coming out of Washington, D.C., which on one hand, is going to drive your Bitcoin up. On the other, it's going to really make your friends and family probably poor if they don't have Bitcoin. So, I'm conflicted around the whole big, beautiful bill in general. I know the Thomas Massey's been going around and saying it's, pork filled. And there's a lot of things in there that, are really unnecessary. And they're trying to pass a lot of things and jam a lot of things through that bill. But on that note, if, capital gains do get eliminated around Bitcoin and this happens like now, I think that is huge for us as individuals, for us as a Bitcoin business, for the whole Bitcoin industry. And it really is a trend that I was kind of hinting on last week. We had some politicians come out and essentially say that, hey, you know how America could become the Bitcoin industry or superpower of the world is if they followed Singapore. And remember, I mentioned one of the things that Singapore does is, again, no cap gains on Bitcoin. We're seeing some states kind of push through eliminating capital gains on a state level. So I think this would be huge if we can get this through. I will hold myself to it, and we'll petition for Trump to be on Mount Rushmore as the greatest Bitcoin president ever. Say what you will about his shitcoinery here. If he eliminates capital gains tax, like we've seen the Czech Republic do this. Like, this isn't a precedent being set here because we've seen other nations do this, but this would be absolutely huge for Bitcoin around the world, because now it would mean other countries would follow suit. If we can eliminate capital gains right now, shouts out to Senator Lummis, David Bailey, even Dennis Porter out there. Like, if we can get this through, if this happens now, honestly, I can't complain about Trump anymore. Like, print all the money you want, pump our assets, bro, eliminate capital gains, and I'm cool as a Bitcoiner. I really want to see this push through. Though, like Adam Back said, not this de minimis, under $600K, or sorry, $600, like, just eliminate it outright. But, I'll take, like, maybe, we can maybe take the, like, 10K travel law around cash. Like, 600 is still a little low as far as I'm concerned. Like, you can't pay your rent. Like, let me just pay rent in Bitcoin and not have to worry about anything. And I think I'll be kind of cool with it. Like, that'd be fine. That'd be great for me. So on a personal level, I have some caveats on what's going to get passed through, but I think this is a good baby step towards where I think the world is headed. Elimination of capital gains on Bitcoin. Shouts out to Senator Lummis. Let's hope this gets pushed through. Again, for a couple of times, I'm rooting for politicians to push some good Bitcoin legislations, and this is like the thing on my list. Like, forget the strategic Bitcoin reserve, eliminate cap gains on Bitcoin, and I won't even care if they don't do a strategic Bitcoin reserve. They've already done enough as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know. That's my take on this. Luke, what's your thoughts on this? I know we kind of briefly touched on this before the show. You're like, yo, are we talking about it? I'm like, of course we're talking about that today. So let's see if this goes through. I think this is huge. And, for you guys that believe in the democratic process here, get on the phone call. Let's start bombarding these senators here, and let's get this pushed through. Anyways, go, Luke.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting if Trump continues doing what he is doing. I might need to add a little bit of a caveat to my general rule of thumb, which is right now, I will refuse to live in any Western countries for the next 5 or 10 years, because it's my base case that most of these Western countries, they're going to come for your Bitcoin. Unrealized capital gains taxes, citizenship-based taxation, all of this is being talked about in France, big G7 nation, Canada, another huge G20 nation, and Australia. It looks as if the West is going one way when it comes to taxes and attacking Bitcoin. Was it Italy who doubled the capital gains tax on Bitcoin
that was
earlier in
was
the
it
year?
Italy or France? I forget. I'll try to look it up right now, but keep going. Oops, wrong one.
Yeah, a lot of these. Yeah, there you go. A lot of these European countries have been attacking Bitcoin and increasing their taxes on Bitcoin. And I think it's really interesting that maybe America's going to go the other way. So again, this could be like the big flipping in right here, or the big fork in the path for the West. Is America goes
it was
one
Italy,
way,
Luke.
and then, there we go. My memory's not completely shot at 7:39 at night. So yeah, I think it's interesting. Europe's going one way, America's going the other way. I think this is going to be really a telltale sign of what's going to happen over the next 10 or 20 years. I think it's interesting that the Middle East keeps trying to maybe realign itself with America. Recently, Saudi Arabia and the UAE invested multiple trillions of dollars into America after Trump got elected as president. Is this a little bit of a pivot? Is the Middle East coming back to realign itself with America and maybe a Bitcoin-backed dollar? Potentially, yes. That would be really interesting to see, because they did look as if they were going to go the BRICS direction or join the China, Russia, India kind of trade bloc. So again, really interesting. I think if America introduces, tax-free capital gains exemptions on Bitcoin, this would be another huge signpost that Trump is definitely moving things in the right direction and kind of going the other way that the globalists are going in Europe. So certainly interesting. I've got my popcorn ready at home, just sitting back and just watching all of this
unfold. Well, Luke, the chat wants to know, if America does push this through, will Australia ever follow?
Oh, it's really interesting. Australia is such like a flip floppy country when it comes to Australia. It's really like at the moment the big banks are banning people from sending money from their bank accounts to exchanges to buy Bitcoin. This has been happening for multiple years. But then on the flip side, like we're seeing adoption, we've got an ETF in the country. So predicting what Australia is going to do is probably one of the toughest things in the world to do after they, showed their hand back in 2020 and 2021 and 2022 with all of the tyrannical decisions that the government made back then. But so, yeah, who knows what the Australian government's going to do.
Sounds like you're never going back to that island.
Never. Never. It's been 4 glorious years and I still haven't gone
Let's
back.
go. Chad move. All right. Before we move on though, shouts out to Ron P. I don't know what this comment is referring to, but thanks for the $10 super chat. And he goes, because I am not Mike, I actually support the channel. I don't know what the reference is, but yeah, shout out to Ron P. Don't be like Mike. For once, don't be like Mike. All right, guys, let's get into the culture. I got a good tweet here, and I'm glad I have Luke here today because I'm pretty sure we might debate this topic a little bit here. It's the question, why is the price going so low? Who is selling the Bitcoin? Well, it looks like we got some on-chain data showing us where the Bitcoin is coming from. So let's get into it.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes self-custody easy and secure. As a Bitcoiner, I care about holding my own private keys, but multi-sig can sometimes get tricky. Casa nails it with a multi-key security. So even if one key gets lost or stolen, your Bitcoin stays safe. And you don't give up custody, meaning no one could access your Bitcoin but you. No seed phrase anxiety, no single point of failure. I've been telling my friends and family about Casa for years. Their UX and UI on their app is by far the best in the industry. Inheritance planning is built in, and they even offer Casa for Business if you're thinking about a Bitcoin treasury. Hit up casa.io today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium. Head over to casa.io.
All right, guys. So let me just put a little bit of context to this. I think you guys have heard me talk about Charles Edwards before on the show. This is his Twitter account, Capriole.io. He's got a great website. It's capriole.com/charts. A lot of really good charts on there. If you're trying to wrap your head around what's going on in the markets, you want some real-time metrics. Again, I don't know if he's got a trading group or what, but you can buy the charts. I don't know what's going on, but he's got some good free charts that I really, really enjoy. And he also is head of his own investment fund, and he's been doing really, really good data here for everyone out there, for free. And our boy CJ Constantinos, hopefully I said your last name correctly, bro. He kind of credits him as being his mentor. And so ever since CJ kind of told me about him a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago by now, I follow him on Twitter, and he always gives some really good updates. And of course, me and Luke have been going back and forth. We'll probably go back and forth right now. Everyone is asking the same question. Look, I get it. Bitcoin's going to 1 million in 20 years or something, 5 million, 10 million in 20 years. But what's going on with the price right now? Why can't we break 100K? Why can't we break the all-time high of, what was it, 116 or what, 112? I forget what it is now. Well, Charles dropped these charts here Let me see the date. It is, what was that? Yesterday. And I'll try to explain the chart for the audio listeners here, but I'm going to read his Twitter, and then me and Luke will kind of, talk about this. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is kind of the sentiment or the vibe that I'm getting. Again, there's the metric that Luke loves. The Bitcoin exchanges are getting freaking drained of Bitcoin. But this is kind of my vibe right here. And I did do an interview with CJ over the weekend. I think we're going to post it on Saturday. He kind of explains what he thinks is going on with the quote price manipulation, is that now the institutions are here and they're not really going long on spot Bitcoin. There is interest in spot Bitcoin, of course, through ETFs and corporate treasuries and just buying the Bitcoin itself for the ETFs. But what you don't see on the back end is that they are also shorting Bitcoin right now. And that's where they get the spread from, the buys and the shorts. And that's where they make their management fees here. But Charles dropped this. And I think it's just another data point on our board here. So I'm going to read the tweet. He goes, people are wondering why Bitcoin has been stuck at 100K for so long. Despite the institutional FOMO, despite what Twitter news might suggest, it's because Bitcoin OGs, aka the long-term holders, have been dumping on Wall Street since the ETF launch in January 2024, unloading their positions. In April, on Bits and Dips, I predicted the Bitcoin treasury companies would create a huge flywheel buying frenzy and push the ETF narrative into the back seat. We have clearly entered the heat of that today, as many copycats have entered the market. This dynamic is now starting to appear in the on-chain data, and we can see that the 6-month plus Bitcoin holders have skyrocketed over the 2-month period. The amount of Bitcoin acquired in the last 2 months by this cohort has completely consumed all of the Bitcoin unloaded by the long-term holders over the last 1.5 years. Incredible. We also see a new dynamic whenever aggressive spikes in 6-month plus holders occur. Price usually squeezes following these periods, short-term bullish. Will the treasury companies be able to keep up the fast rate of accumulation? I think this flywheel still has a long way to go, which is what Luke and I were kind of talking about earlier in the show about Bitcoin treasury companies. In the near term, we still need to overwhelm broader weakness across on-chain data, which on aggregate could be better today. If the 6-month plus holders, the treasury companies, can continue their relentless buying, that should be achievable. And then you can see here, the blue line here is the 6-month holders, or wait, this blue line here, sorry, colorblind. And the red line is the 2-year holders. And there was actually a good comment here. I thought I had it up here, but someone was asking, can you show on the chart, with the long-term holders selling? And he's like, that's literally what the chart is showing. So you can see here, and I'll explain this for the audio listeners, but for you guys on YouTube, you can see this blue arrow here is the 6-month holders acquiring Bitcoin. This starts June 2021. And you can see the price, it starts pumping as these new corporate treasury or 6-month holders start to accumulate Bitcoin. It kind of goes sideways for a while. The price dips a little bit. And then when that number goes back up is when new 6-month holder entrants are coming into the market. And you can see every time the new holders come in, the price does kind of respond favorably. But on the bottom is this red line of long-term holders. And it did increase around 2023, but you can see a steady decline since 2024, or rather, since the ETF have come out into the market. And so, Nico and I have been talking about it on the show. Now we kind of have the data. You can talk to some OG holders, people that have been in the space for a long time. And with all the bullish news around Bitcoin, everyone's kind of asking the same question. It's like, how come the price isn't ripping? I have friends that are like, dude, there's so much paper Bitcoin in the market. This is why the price isn't ripping. Again, as I said earlier, I'm a simple supply-demand kind of guy. It's like there's just more sellers than buyers right now. And as we can see, this is how Bitcoin gets distributed by long-term holders, essentially selling some Bitcoin, locking in some profits, whatever you want to call it, essentially, locking in some purchasing power gains here, so maybe they don't get wrecked in another bear market. But you can see that this is how the Bitcoin gets distributed. Long-term holders stay in the market for a long time. They gain some purchasing power. They sell some to survive, and then new entrants come in, and this is how Bitcoin gets distributed around the world. So this is nothing to panic about, but we are seeing that the data is here now. And we can see where the Bitcoin is being sold from. Again, whether you're an on-chain metric guy or not, you think it's, tea leaf reading for men. you can see clearly on the chart there has been a lot of selling. And of course, we also have the nation state kind of concern here. We saw Germany sell 50,000 plus coins. We still have literally no clue what's going on the nation state level in China and or America. We did speculate on Friday. It seems like America might be buying some more Bitcoin. There's some trickle of information come out that could potentially be the case. But again, why is the price just being stuck at 100K? There's just more sellers than buyers, guys. This is very simple economics here. But with that being said, I think it's still very important to remind ourselves Bitcoin is holding on very strong in the face of all this economic geopolitical uncertainty that we see right now. And again, when we had the tariffs, Bitcoin only dropped as much as the S&P 500. When we saw the Middle East crisis kind of unfold 2 weeks ago, Bitcoin kind of held out pretty strong, and then it recovered even stronger. So even though we're seeing sellers sell Bitcoin right now, long-term sellers or long-term holders sell Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin price right now, the network in general, is very resilient. It's very strong. I'm still incredibly bullish for the end of the year. But I just brought some new data to you, Luke. Now we have a new wrinkle to add here. So what's your thoughts on it's just basically long-term holders selling their Bitcoin right now? I forget what the metric was that I saw, but essentially, I think it was last week we were talking about that the sellers right now are being bought up by the Bitcoin treasury companies and the ETFs currently. And so again, this won't last forever. I think it's going to rip, but thoughts, Luke, thoughts?
Yeah, so it is true that red line is decreasing, the one we've got on the screen right now. We've talked about this a lot. We've said over the past year, long-term holders have sold 1 million coins, and that's very normal. Every single time throughout history that Bitcoin's popped above its previous all-time high, you typically see like 6 to 12 months of long-term holders selling their coins, taking profits, and this eventually ends in a supply overhang that creates the top in Bitcoin. This typically happens about, a year after the all-time high breach. And this is why a lot of people are slightly concerned now, because we initially got back above that, 69, 70K all-time high about a year ago. And a lot of people are seeing their data and they're seeing that long-term holders are selling, and they're like, oh, this is bad. The Bitcoin's topped. It's just like previous cycles. But this is what we keep saying to you guys. It's not just like previous Bitcoin cycles. This time is different to previous times. Why is that? That's because this cycle we've seen something new. We've seen the new number of whales go absolutely parabolic over the past 6 months. And this is the treasury companies, the billionaires. And on the chart that we had up on screen a second ago, that was the 6-month holders of Bitcoin. The guys, the blue line at the very top. We're seeing these guys, the new whales, overwhelm the old whales. They are overwhelming the long-term holders who, yes, have correctly sold 1 million coins over the past 6 to 12 months. And all I'm going to say about data and tea leaves and stuff like that is you could kind of see some sort of a correlation. If you look at the 3 arrows our gentleman and friend of the channel has drawn on the blue lines, you can see they do correlate to price pumps. But here's the kicker. What's the biggest price pump on this chart? Bitcoin rallied from 16K to 70K in 6 months. And what happened with his magic indicator? It went sideways during those 6 months. So again, this is why I just think all models are wrong. It's very rare to find a model that actually accurately can describe or predict the price of Bitcoin. But again, I think overall, I agree with a lot of the narratives associated with this chart. Yes, long-term holders are selling. Yes, I do believe long-term holders are going to be outbid by the new whales and the new corporates and the new smart money who seem to be entering the space over the past 12 months.
Yeah, that was a good catch. Because I was thinking the same thing. Like, yes, we are seeing a lot of long-term holders, and I think, I saw someone on Twitter, maybe it was to this chart or just in general, and we see the sentiment. Someone, maybe they retweet, I forget what it was, and I didn't bring it up here today, but someone was essentially saying like, It might have been a skeptic. You know, we're kind of getting this comment right here, which, you know, not to dunk on you, Daryl, here, but this kind of the same sentiment. He goes, Bitcoin will go to zero. All the old heads are selling. And someone on Twitter was basically saying, like, look, don't trust what all the Bitcoin influencers are telling you. To never sell your Bitcoin because the OGs are dumping on you. This is why, like, I'll never buy Bitcoin or something like that. And I totally don't think that that's the case. It's like, look, it's money. You will use it when you need it. It's not so much a bad thing. It's like, this is not a bug around Bitcoin or Bitcoin holders. This is a feature. You use your money when you need it. And hey, if you've been buying Bitcoin at a penny and now it's 100K, like, what? I don't see the issue of, you know, shaving a little bit off for your purchasing power to live your life. Like, this is the natural distribution of Bitcoin throughout the ecosystem. If everyone is holding their Bitcoin like Sailor is, or like the United States government is saying it is, it's like, how is all this Bitcoin going to get distributed around the world? It's like either the Bitcoin gets sold and more people buy it, or each Bitcoin is going to be at a ridiculously astronomical price here. This is just simple demand supply economics here. So either way, it's bullish. I would say, you know, hey, if we get cheaper Bitcoin for the whole summer, like, I'm kind of okay with that. You know, hey, if you make money, if you got cash flow coming in, cheap sats are great. If you are holding Bitcoin and that's all you have and you don't work anymore, then you probably want to see the price go up. Like, everyone is in a different boat right now. But I think it is interesting to see that some long-term holders, not all of them obviously, are selling off, and it is kind of, you know, keeping the price pretty stable right now. So Bitcoin is our stable coin now, Luke.
It is a stable coin. And again, we got another interesting comment. Genuine question, where is the additional $2 trillion going to come in the next 6 to 8 months? Is it going to come from whales, individuals, governments? Who is it going to come from? I'm assuming that is asking the question, you know, if Bitcoin's going to double, go from 100K to 200, we need $2 trillion of capital to come into the market to double Bitcoin's market cap. But again, that's wrong, because again, with Bitcoin, there's a multiplier effect. So for Bitcoin to double and reach a $4 trillion market cap, it's $2 trillion today. We don't need $2 trillion of capital to come into Bitcoin. We only need like 300 billion of new capital to come into Bitcoin, because the multiplier effect for Bitcoin today, it's 6x. For every
I think
$1
it's actually
that wants to
higher,
come
Luke.
in, push it.
Galaxy research, and I don't have the report on hand, but I remember they just dropped a report like 2 weeks ago. You weren't on the show, but I forgot to fully send it to you because that would make you even more bullish. But it said it was, I believe it was 8x multiplier in a bear market, and it was somewhere between like 12 and 24 in the bull market. So I'll try to find that for you to fact check here, but I think 6x is a conservative multiplier here. So it could be even less than that, is essentially why I cut you off.
Oh,
yeah, here, I'll look for it. Keep going. Someone
report.
says, please explain. Explain that a little bit, and I'll try to find the data for you, Luke.
Yeah, so I mean, everybody knows that not all 21 million of the Bitcoin is available for sale. Like, everybody understands that. The data is incredibly clear. Like, 10 million of those coins haven't moved for the past 5 years. We know that 5 million Bitcoins completely lost, hasn't been touched in over a decade. So like, everybody knows not all 21 million Bitcoins available for sale. So when everybody's doing their maths, they're like, they're still using the 21 million circulating supply of Bitcoin in their maths. We shouldn't be doing that. You need to actually use the multiplier effect. Now, Willy Woo has a really good model on his website, and it was called the price gain per dollar invested into Bitcoin. And it has a really cool, it's a 2-year moving average of how dollars coming into Bitcoin affect Bitcoin's market cap. That's why I like to use the multiplier effect from his website, because it's a 2-year moving average. So it's incredibly conservative. And right now that's at 6. But
Okay,
I'm super excited
we'll do this real quick, and forgive me, guys. I misremembered. It wasn't Galaxy, it was Gemini, and CoinGlass. They dropped this report. This is Gemini.com/strategic-Bitcoin-reserve. You guys can go. It's free, and it goes market cap multiplier. Each dollar deployed into Bitcoin can move the market by. Okay, so I was off a little bit. Either $1.70 over time or up to $25 in the short term, depending on timing, volatility, and conviction. So the cyclical MCM varies significantly with trend momentum, ranging between roughly 0.7 in bear markets. Every $1 of inflow, if held until next bear market, leads to increasing market cap by just 70 cents. And then 3.7% in bull markets, every $1 of inflow, if held until the next bull market, results in increasing market cap of up to 3.7. So you're like, okay, wait, you're off. What are you even talking about here, Opti? Ultimate MCM, when measured cumulatively from Bitcoin's Genesis block, stabilizes around roughly 1.7, implying that each $1 permanently deployed into Bitcoin has historically resulted in $1.70 residue in market cap. And for short-term impacts, the 30-day MCM can range from near zero to 25x, especially during high volatility periods. On average, the short-term multiplier is roughly 8x, meaning $1 of capital can briefly move the market by $8. So, Luke, you have some new numbers. On average, it's 8x. Short-term could be as high as 25x. And, maybe like during bear markets, it's maybe a 1.7 or a 0.7x. So, what's that? What is your new updated math telling you, Luke?
It's all bullish. It's all incredibly bullish. I mean, like, a lot of people are saying, where are we going to get $2 trillion of extra capital from to double Bitcoin? Firstly, we only need 300 billion. But I think we're going to see more than $2 trillion come into Bitcoin this bull run. Just think about it. Michael Saylor's just launched 3 fixed income products: Strife, Stride, and Strike. Yeah, that's the 3. And like, these things essentially open the portal to the $315 trillion fixed income market. Like, this is insane what he's just launched, and nobody has wrapped their heads around it. Me either, yes. But again, we've got 300 trillion that can now directly come into Bitcoin through these fixed income products in a roundabout way. So again, I think it's easier than ever to see trillions of dollars flowing into Bitcoin. Even recently, we showed you guys the news of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac being forced to accept Bitcoin as a down payment for a mortgage. What's going to happen here? Like, who knows how that bill's going to evolve, but is that going to open the door for trillions of dollars of equity to be withdrawn out of property market and into Bitcoin? Maybe Bitcoin is now used as the equity portion for a mortgage, and people can take equity out of their home. I mean, Bitcoin right now is literally tapping the biggest markets in the world, and nobody's noticed. We didn't have this in 2021. We didn't have BlackRock with Bitcoin ETFs. We didn't have American mortgages now potentially being done with Bitcoin down payment. We didn't have Michael Saylor openly tapping the $315 trillion fixed income market. We had none of that in last cycle. So some people say, where's the $2 trillion going to come from? Guys, we could see 20 trillion want to flow into Bitcoin this cycle comfortably. Conservatively, we could see that. Again, global equities, hundreds of trillions of dollars in size. I think we need to think bigger. And again, 20 trillion wanting to flow in, slap an 8x or a 25x multiplier on it. Now we're really starting to talk some funky numbers.
Let's go. 100 trillion market cap this year. You just heard Luke say it. No, I'm trolling. No, but I mean, it took me a minute to understand the multiplier effect as well. And I think I had to ask Luke like 2 or 3 times, because I heard it before, but I forget who said it at first, but it just, it was a British Hodl. When he was explaining it, just like, I'm like, what is he talking about? And then Luke kind of sat me down one day before the show, and he's like, yo, and we even did it on the show, and you explained it to me, and I was like, oh, okay, now I'm even more bullish than I ever was before, because I was like, Senor Gringo Poppy in here, he's like, I really thought we needed to double the market cap to double the price, and you're like, no, you don't need that much capital come into Bitcoin to move the Bitcoin price up. And once you kind of understand, like, wait, there's levels to this. This works totally different than I thought. Yes, supply demand economics is taking place, but for every dollar that comes into Bitcoin, it doesn't necessarily mean that the market cap moves up a dollar. That's not how this works. It could move up, as we've been saying, 6, 8, 25x. At the very least, it's, 1.7x per dollar it moves up. So, these predictions of $20 trillion market cap by end of the year, yes, that's crazy. A 10x sounds nuts. But a double here, 3, 4x, I think that's totally in play, just considering if you understand how the math works behind the scenes. And as Luke just pointed out, there seems to be a lot of capital that is waiting on the sideline to get into Bitcoin, and it could find its way in the market within the next quarter, within the next 2 quarters, 6 months by the end of the year. And who knows, Luke, maybe we don't get a 2026 bear market. I would really love for that to happen. That'd be really nice. Or, maybe a bear market at 150K. I'll take a bear market at 150K just to basically shut up my friend who's like, it's going to double top at 150K. We're not going to go any higher. I'm like, no, bro. The bear market bottom is going to be 150K. What are you talking about?
That's what I'm talking about.
Let's go.
300K top.
Sounds great.
Correction.
Sounds awesome. I'm totally with that. All right, guys. Well, this was today's episode. As someone said in the chat, long-term viewers, like, I actually learned something today. Hey, we give some information. This isn't just hopium here. We do our best. We try to hit it from all angles. And guys, as you can tell, I'm hosting the show today, so I hope you enjoyed it. Nico's actually going to be gone all week, so you're stuck with me all week. Luke will be here till Wednesday. You're stuck with Luke till Wednesday, so we're going to get extremely bullish on the show. I'll tap on Luke a little more for some different segments so that we can do some Luke specials on the Simply Bitcoin channel, and we'll get a little more Luke in the show. Pause. But you already know. Yeah. Luke, thank you so much, man. Appreciate it. It's always a blast when you come on. And guys, we'll be back tomorrow, 12:15 p.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. We go live. Obviously, we start a little later. We gotta get the anticipation up. But we will see you tomorrow, guys. And of course, hit the subscribe button, like the video, comment on the video. Are we too bull-tarded? But we are dropping fire for you guys. We got Dante and Rustin and, of course, Ocean's dropping content all week for you guys. It's not just the live show. We have all kinds of content for you guys. So hit that subscribe button, and we will catch you on the flip side. Peace out, guys.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.